courage and the wisdom to make the right decisions for our county. Let's pray also for our men and women in uniform. We praise you, Lord, for the many blessings you have granted this county. We pray that although we might not always agree on our decisions, we can leave respecting one another, knowing that you, Jesus, has the ultimate answer. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jim Arthur.
Here.
Earl Baker.
Present.
Kitty Barr.
Yeah.
Barbara Bennett. Bruce Cannon.
Here.
Levon Cheney. Brian Kaufman. Dennis Sternovich.
Here.
Jesse Durbin.
Here.
Gary Gergen.
Here.
Richard Hayden.
Here.
Robert Jordan.
Here.
Kate Harney. Larry Lenz.
Yes.
Terry Metzger.
Here.
Frank Mulholland.
Yeah.
Bobby Orman.
Here.
Gary Patterson.
Yes.
Robert Simpson.
Here.
David Switz.
Here.
Dale Weatherill.
Present.
Lynn Williams.
Here. Everybody's received a copy of the minutes. In the package, Jessica sent out a corrected copy this morning, and you should have that corrected copy at your seat. Are there any questions on the minutes? Do I have a motion for approval of them?
So moved.
Frank, and I've got a second by Richard Hayden. Any question? Those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same side. Approval of minutes carries. Gina Vonderhyde, State's Attorney, is going to update us on the sheriff's payroll issues.
So everyone is aware of the potential issue. I think we discussed it in a budget meeting. At this point, I think it might be advisable if we have someone that's independent of any of us, that's able to look at all the books and come in and tell us what the problem is, and if there is a problem, how much. The only person I know of that would do some kind of forensic audit is a guy from Bethany by the name of John Vandenberg. I worked with him on a case that is, well, technically still pending, but it turned into federal charges. So I have worked with him previously. I do believe in his abilities and everything, but it's up to you guys. If you want, someone from somewhere else, I mean, it's up to you. Yeah, Lynn?
Could you explain to the people, all of us, the difference between a regular audit and a forensic audit?
I think a forensic audit may be more valuable if there would be potential criminal charges in the future. And that's not to say that there's going to be or anything like that. It's just something that would be, I think, it's something that would be a little bit more geared towards that if necessary.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I see they're singling out the Sheriff's Department. I would like to see the audit performed for all departments, so that when we get into it, we're through with it. We don't have to go backtrack later and say some other department, this department. But just do it once and get her done.
Gina, the issue with the sheriffs and the past payroll, did we contact State's Police about this?
Yes, we did, and that's not something that they have the resources to look into. They said based on based on what we see the problem as, it's more of like a system-wide oversight, so to speak, or a system-wide, error regarding the payroll. It's not something, as we've described it now, it's not something that would lead to, criminal charges. In other words, it's not like one or two deputies that would be lining their pockets somehow. So their concern, I think, was if they're doing this for us, then they're going to get sucked into any, financial problems that any other counties have. They have a big, jurisdiction in their zone. So they were unable to assist us in this regard.
Who is John Vandenberg with?
I believe he has his own.
He's got his own he's a CPA or
Correct,
over in Bethany?
yes.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation to the board?
I mean, it's up to you guys, it's your decision, like I said, I don't want it to be, my person, and then if there's no problem, people are, upset. I mean, like I said, I know that John does it, I know that he did fine work in, the case that I worked with him on, the Tower Hill case, and, I think he could easily handle this, this problem for us. But if you guys want someone else from somewhere else, that's up to you.
Now, this is aside from the 1 week behind or prospective payment that we are making. This has nothing to do with that.
This is separate.
This has to do with the last, since 2014, an error in record keeping that could possibly, means that the sheriffs have been working 70 hours per every 2 weeks as opposed to 80. And we've been paying them for 10. And, go ahead, Erica, what is this?
They're not working 70 every payroll. It ends up, there's an 80-hour payroll, 80-hour payroll, 60, 60, 80, 80, 60, 60 on the
So
4 on
the
4.
payrolls are not always 80 hours. And the question is, have we overpaid them in the last 5 years?
Yes, and if so, to what extent, how much money are we talking?
Well, I think we need to have an audit done on that. I
was going through doing some checking, there seems to be a possibility through the Attorney General. There is a section that goes out and possibility of them doing a forensic audit that would not be costing the taxpayers money. I don't know that this is accurate, but I think we need to look into it. And I think probably through Gina's office, that would be the ideal place for an investigation there, is whether the Attorney General has a division that could possibly perform this forensic audit, and maybe at state expense, not our expense.
I kind of missed the first part of what you said. You would prefer the Attorney General to handle it, is that what you said?
There seems to be maybe a possibility it could be done through them and not cost Shelby County taxpayers
Understood.
that money. And I think we need to look at all those things and cut that cost as much as we can, and get the work done and get things straightened out and move on.
And that is, that's certainly you guys' decision for today, for sure.
well, if we don't know about the Attorney General's office, you don't have an
I
answer.
don't know one way or the other if they would do that for us.
And I
Yeah, I will say this, if they do have someone that would do it for us, chances are we're gonna be on their timeline. I think John would probably prioritize this a little bit more than the AG's
Yeah,
office, but that's,
yeah.
Denny?
What would be the approximate cost of the independent auditor if we
Don't know yet.
choose to go that route as opposed to the Attorney General?
I don't think we have that answer today.
I don't have that answer. I think his rates vary, depending on whether his staff can do some of the work or he himself is doing some of the work. You could certainly, approve up to a certain amount, and if it's gonna be more than that, we may have to discuss it further. You could, table it until we decide how much it's gonna cost us. I don't think until he gets into it, there's any real way of knowing exactly how much time this is going to take, and how much time it's gonna take is probably what's gonna determine the cost.
Denny?
Well, I'd like to make a motion then that we table the issue for right now. We check out to see what his cost would be and the availability of the AG.
I have a second on that motion.
I'd second that.
Second by Gary Patterson. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like the definition of, our state's attorney said system-wide. There's the problem system, what's the system-wide? Is that all departments that are?
No, I just meant, like all the deputies were, having the same problems with potentially being overpaid. It wasn't like one or two deputies were turning in false time cards or something and getting paid more than, this was something that seemed to be going across the board, across all the deputies.
System is definition of the sheriff's office.
Yeah, I guess,
Okay,
yeah,
not clerks and everybody else's. Okay.
correct.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second.
I have a naive question. Doesn't the county have an auditor?
Yes.
Why are we not?
Well, Weston Company is our county auditor. They do our current audits every year. They do not audit payroll records for us at this point.
Okay, that's,
They do audit the payroll records, they don't go in depth, they look at what is turned in to our office, which basically right now comes and pay this person this amount, this, that, and the other. They don't look at actual timesheets, they just make sure that what is being turned into the treasurer's office to pay employee Smith a certain amount of dollars and then check it to our payroll records that employee Smith got that exact amount. It's an in and out, and they are checking that, so it is audited,
But
it's just,
it's not as in-depth
Yeah,
as
the
we would
forensic would
like.
go
okay,
a lot deeper.
thank you.
Okay.
Would you repeat the motion?
Denny, or did you write it down?
The motion was
The
to
motion is to table the current request for John Vandenberg, but not really totally table it. Go back to John, see what he thinks he's gonna cost us, and look into whether or not the Attorney General offers the services of coming in and doing a forensic audit. If the Attorney General does it, what's the cost, what's the timeline, and same with John Vandenberg.
Right.
We have a motion for that. So Gina will be reporting back next month with the cost of John Vandenberg, or estimated cost, and what the Attorney General can do for us. Is that correct?
Right.
So I have a motion and a second. We've had some discussion. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. No.
Okay, could I, Foreman and Kaufman?
Okay, motion carries. That concludes, Gina, is that all you've got? Okay, good. Okay, next topic. Frank Mulholland's gonna speak for EMA records.
Mr. Chairman,
Jared?
before we move on, can we stay with Gene?
Yep.
Can we bring up what's going on as far as the media publications with the attorneys going on? With Ed Flynn?
Is now the time to do that, or do that? Yeah, go ahead. What do you want to know?
Well, you said you reached out to the AG's office, is there any response?
I have no response yet. What they're doing for me at this time is seeing if they have an opinion published or unpublished that is on point. And assuming they do not have one, then they would be treating my question as a request for opinion. So they would
What's the
get
question
back in touch
anyway?
with me.
What are we talking about now?
The question of Attorney Flynn being used for our labor relations, he was appointed as a special assistant state's attorney in 2014-2015 fiscal year. He has been acting as our attorney ever since, as our labor relations attorney ever since. There was a question of whether he's been, properly appointed, properly a special assistant state's attorney. And so I turned that over to the Attorney General. They're gonna get us, hopefully some guidance in that regard.
Well, there's 4 case studies already that said that it's not, now was he put on the payroll of your office as a state's attorney?
He's not in my budget, under my assistant state's attorney line item or anything like that. My line item for the special prosecutor is its own thing, the state's attorney's appellate prosecutor group, we do that resolution every year. Ed was just always paid out of I don't even know what, general fund or something.
He has his own line item.
So that might be something we want to correct, and that is part of what the Attorney General will tell us, I'm hoping. The one Attorney General opinion that I did read mentioned, or it was the question of whether a private attorney could be paid for by the county. That one in particular that I read had to do with, I think it was 2 office holders that sort of went off on their own and sued the county for an injunction and then asked to be reimbursed for their legal fees. So I didn't think that was quite the same type of scenario. Maybe they're gonna tell us that it is. I mean, maybe they're not. I'm not sure yet, so.
Yeah, Jessica sent us all a 69-page report from the State's Attorney General's office. And after reading all of them, that it's very clear that an outside source would have to be under under your office and be paid through the state's attorney. And at that point, wouldn't the county board, being the employer, have to approve that as being part of that your office as a state's attorney, assistant state's attorney?
Possibly. I mean, yeah, that's, you know.
Yeah, I read it, it stated that. The last Attorney General, Ryan, confirmed the others too, as stating the same.
Any further question? Jerry?
I just got a comment that myself, I want information from the Attorney General and from Gina. I want legal opinions in writing before I guess, vote any way on this. Because I don't think I've seen enough information in this and that that's come across our desk to really say that anything's clear cut, and she obviously didn't get a clear cut decision from them. I want to see a legal, to me, we're all liable, and I want to see something legal in writing that says this either can or can't be done.
Then we'd also like to see something that when he was on the payroll as assistant state's attorney in writing.
I can confirm he is not on payroll. He does not receive a W-2. He received a 1099. He is not on payroll or considered employee of the county.
So
So with that said, when you read through the statute, it says to offer opinion and advice without fee, then we start throwing a whole bunch of wrenches in the scenario. So, serious matter, we need to get the facts from the AG.
Okay. Any further questions of Gina? Let's move on. Frank Mulholland, you're gonna update us on the Montgomery County 911.
Yeah, it's, actually, it's my pleasure to report that Montgomery County Board has decided to table the consolidation proposal. So we would recommend postponing the consideration indefinitely.
It's tabling it indefinitely.
I so move.
Dale makes a motion. Do I have a second? Second by Gary Gardini. Any discussion?
wasn't there mention that the Illinois State Police was taking this over in 2021? Or did I miss something in the last meeting that was mentioned by,
Well, I think it's been mentioned, but I think it's maybe a dream.
you think it's a fact, it's not?
Well, I think that in some years ago, it was said they would, but I don't believe the state's police have any intention of taking it.
The current legislation that covers Emergency Telephone Systems Board has a sunset clause at the end of this year. And so, assuming that there's new legislation going forward, would cover that. Currently, the state police does not have the infrastructure available to perform the services that all of the ETSBs in the state of Illinois handle. But
So it's still in the talk stage then, Jerry?
yeah, until there's new legislation, it's hard to say.
Okay, thank you.
Gary?
Mr. Chairman.
When we went to Montgomery County, the state police director spoke to the group that evening, which was a large group, and she said they're putting a whole new communication system in place, which some of the counties like Shelby Christian already have their communication in place. The state hasn't even bid or taken bid or put into place the system that everybody's tying to. She said originally the legislator said it was supposed to be online by July the 1st. She said needless to say that's not gonna happen because we haven't even made the specs, let alone take the bids. But she said the state police oversees all of the communication system and it's under her direction, but that's as far as she went in the state police involvement at that meeting.
Yeah, it's generally understood that at some point in the future, the state police probably will take it over. In fact, they probably will form, this is just speculation, but they will probably form 3 or 4 districts in the entire state and run communications through those. But that's just kind of in the planning stage. We're nowhere near close to that yet. Probably be several years before we finally do that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table this 911 merger indefinitely. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Jared Rocliffe, you're up as pecan.
Hey Bruce, yeah, you were going to anyway, weren't you?
I was gonna stand here, but I
Yeah,
can't.
they won't talk as long as they're standing.
We'll see about that.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. We have 3 vehicles. Am I talking, can you guys hear me through this?
No, you're fine.
Okay. We have 3 vehicles. They're 2008 Chevrolet minivan, Uplander minivans that are, have served their useful life for centralized public transit. And we have requested disposal of those from IDOT. IDOT has granted permission to dispose of those. And since they are the property of the county, I'm requesting permission from you guys to dispose of those. And by dispose, I mean they will be sealed bids and will be accepted on them and awarded to the.
Do you need a motion for that?
Yes, sir.
I so moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Lynn and a second by Earl. Is there any question on this? There's a list of these vehicles in the Pecan report right here. There's 3 of them. They got 171, 198, 160,000 miles on them respectively. They're all 2008 Chevrolet minivans. So we have a first and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Those in favor of disposing of these vans say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Brad, are you in the audience someplace? Brad Hudson? Terry Metzger?
Yeah,
Could you come up here for Terry?
no, they're not. I like to
You won't
stand,
talk so loud.
I like to stand and talk.
Your ID.
Yeah.
Bob, just deals with animal control. You haven't been here in a couple of months.
I'm lost.
What we've got is, and Gina's working on it, and that's why we can't say too much other than we are monitoring it, and I think she's doing a good job on where she's going with this. So we're just gonna kind of table that and see how short it was when I stood. Any questions?
Terry?
Yes.
Is this for a county-wide thing, or is this in a certain area?
Well, Brad was having trouble through animal control. This thing's actually been on the books for like 4 years of this lady having problems. And so we just kind of, as animal control, we thought Brad was getting there, but we didn't know. I mean, every month he would tell us, you know, this is still holding. Well, then it kind of got ridiculous that nothing was happening here. So we decided to put it on the agenda and start monitoring it a little closer to make sure, yes.
Just a suggestion, if that, you need those stakes for that Christmas party, we could venture those
Yeah.
out.
Is that a motion?
Now, this is, you're talking about loose cattle.
Yes.
This is up in Windsor
Terry and
area.
I
Yes.
carry out of our own
Okay.
pocket.
It's an isolated case of cows that keep getting out. Sounds like our owner is not in very good shape, has had some deaths in the family.
You tell me what I can and can't say. So.
There's only so much I can say about a pending
Yeah,
case or whatever,
Right.
but
The rumor is the guy's not complying, and I'm not, and we've got his cows?
No,
Okay, we don't.
They're out
have
there.
scouts, good.
Yep.
So, you'll hear more about that.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next up.
Okay, we had Bob, were you at the county board meeting for the farm?
I was at the meeting.
Good. So we're on.
Is that okay for you?
No, I'm okay. I'm okay.
I'm not gonna stand up here too long, or one of y'all have to pick me up, you know? And I don't think any of you wants to do that. But before I start into this, I'd just like to thank the county board members for their thoughts and prayers while I've been gone. I said, I've been on a real trip, but nobody wants to take it. For 3 months, I've been in and out of the hospital, then nursing home, and back and forth, and I think finally they got to the bottom of my problem. And I'm going pretty good. But first of all, I just know there's a lot of new board members on here since I read this the last time, and I just wanted to read a little bit of this sheet. I know we got a long meeting, but I want to fill some of you in on the story about the county farm. As reported in January the 27th of 1876, Shelby County, independent from various states, the Board of Supervisors is in session this week, having convened on Tuesday, but we have not been able to attend the session and report what business has been done. Talking about the county farm, the board, this has not been in the session with the other board. So anyway, the members will all visit the poor farm tomorrow morning to see how things are going on out there. We predict that they will find everything satisfactory. Mr. Corley of Tar Heel presented a proposal from M.D. Lane that he would undertake the superintendency of the county information for the sum of $500 per year. On motion, the same was referred to committee as a poor farm. So that's what our county farm used to be called, the poor farm. It was for those folks that could not make it on their own, had no place else to go, and they ended up going there they worked there, they got fed there, and that was the story. Some of them even got buried there. There's a little cemetery out there where some of them was buried. Okay, including in the treasurer's report the following items in relation to poor farm: amount of stalks produced related to the past year, 200 bushel of wheat, 800 bushel of oats, 1,500 bushel of corn, 250 bushel of potatoes, 15 bushel sweet potatoes, 46 gallons of molasses, 500 heads of cabbage, 15 tons of hay, stock on hand, 1 colt, 3 calves, 50 hogs and pigs, number of paupers on the farm at the last report, 16. Admitting since the 16 was totaled, we have a total of 32 now. Deaths of paupers, 3. Appreciated children, paupers dismissed was 7. And number of farms on farm at present is 20. So some is passed on. They got a few more, it looks like. So right there on the farm, some of them was born. So that's just a little bit of the information about the farm that I thought would be interesting to some of you that never heard the story before.
And, so, anyway, we had our board meeting. Brian come by and picked me up, you know. I've been kind of dependent on everybody to come by and pick me up. They won't let me drive yet. I'm hoping next Tuesday they're gonna turn me loose so I can drive. So anyway, we had our meeting, and of course, first of all, we always talk about what needs to be done at the farm. Is there anything that needs to be done out there? The tiles, the waterways, the terraces, and I asked him a question about those terraces, because I thought with all the rain we've had, there's been a lot of washing, and I thought maybe we'd have some problems out there. But he said nothing but the silt from the farmland had washed into the waterway, and he's got a scraper that he can use to take and dip that soil back out of there and carry it back out into the field and dump it. So then we talked about the lime and the other fertilizers. The lime we are to buy as the county. He's to furnish all the rest of it under the agreement. Then we said, had he got any soil tests? Yes, he had got some, and it showed that we were in good shape. We don't have to spend no money for lime this year. That sounded good to us, because we are allowed to spend up to $2,000 a year on lime for the farm. Then we just talked about the farm program a little bit, which everybody in the farm community is talking about the new farm program. But the way we rent the farm to him, that's his decision, as long as he's in control. Of course, then we got down to that big question that's always at the end of every meeting: what's the money gonna be? So we all know in the farming community that this has not been one of the best years for us, but it's like you used to have to tell your wife, you know, once in a while if you was a farmer, maybe next year, honey. And so anyway, we talked about that, and we decided that we would stay with the same amount as we had last year, which was the $200 for the tillable acres. And I think if most of you that's ever seen that farm out there, you wouldn't want to farm it for that, because there's only 13 fields in it, and some of them goes 2 different ways, and you have to farm it. I said, what do you got to do with that 16-row planter? He said, well, you want to have them automatic shutoffs on them rows if you don't want to use up way too much grain. And so, anyway, that's what we decided on as us group. We talked among ourselves, and then we talked with him, and we decided we couldn't ask for anything more than that, and we just raised it last year on him. So our proposal to the board is that we will leave it the same as last year, the $200 per acre.
Is that a motion? Is that a motion?
No, I'm asking for a motion from the board.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion from Earl, do we have a
Question.
second? We have a second.
I'll second.
Dale, then do we have any questions?
Bob, first I'd like to congratulate you on your health and stuff, and the completeness of your report. On the years that we do have to buy lime and we pay that $2,000, does Erica write a check for that, or do you just automatically deduct that from the? I take her a bill and she writes the check. Okay. The last 2 years or 3, we've been having Bill to haul it. And Bill has just been, and he's been paying for the line, and then he just gives us a bill for the line and the truck and all in one bill, then we don't have to make out two checks.
Now that is according to Hoyle, right?
Of course,
Erica?
Pardon me?
As far as the checks and stuff with the money?
It actually goes to Jessica's office because she does accounts payable. Both of our names go on the checks, but there's nothing wrong with the way this is being done.
Okay.
It's a claim and it's taken before the board, it's approved, and then it's paid.
That's what I wanted to know. My second question is, do you or your designee ever make inspections of the farm?
I drive by it probably 5 to 7 times a year.
Okay, good.
It's on my way from here to home, and a lot of times I'll just swing down that road and drive by it and look at it. Only one time I said something to him. I saw a couple of thistles that hadn't been cut, and I called him and I said, you know, you better cut them, the edge of that, into that waterway, or we'll have 50 of them next year.
And that cemetery out there, is that an active?
No.
Okay.
It's just been installed, well, I think now it's just got posts set at the corners.
Still maintained though?
But he mows it, takes care of it. Used to, the office down there where they got the folks, it's handicapped folks, you know.
SCC.
Yeah, they used to go out there and take care of it, but the last couple of years, they haven't went out there. And so he's been just mowing it. And stuff.
Thank you.
Keeping
That's
it
all I have.
looking good.
Okay, so I've got a motion and a second.
I just had one quick question. I go by that also several times a year, and if you compare it to what it looked like 20 years ago, the farm is very well kept for the terrain and the type of farm it is. Very well kept up.
Any further questions?
Those terraces done a lot for that farm. And they were put in.
Richard?
Does anyone know what the road coordinates are for the farm is?
The coordinates?
Yeah.
No.
1450, I think it is. 1425. Now don't hold me to that.
1450 east, 1425 north.
1450
It's the west
north.
town, or south
and
forward.
1425 east.
Bruce, on the lease, it says 1655 east, 1200 north road. Now, I don't know if that's the address of the farm or,
I think that's tenant.
I think that's Jim's address.
I think that's Jim's address. The farm doesn't have electricity, and so it's not technically addressed. Doesn't have a 911 address. So your coordinates, if you're at 1450 and 1425.
I'm sure that's right, but I wouldn't bet my life on it.
Okay, so I have,
You turn on the road right out here at the west side of the Lance Farm and go north up over that hill to the end of that road, and you turn and go west. If you remember the folks, she used to be our Kathy's aunt, the one before Kathy. There where they built that new house out in there.
Call for the question?
okay, can we call the question? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Okay, the new lease will carry. Can I have you a copy of the lease? Okay. Next up, Erica, expense review, monthly investment report.
You've got your paper, the monthly investments report. Again, state those are restricted funds. Our general fund available cash report, beginning balance, $2,570,530.16. Our revenue for January was $239,725.05. Expenses were $425,890.43. So our ending balance, $2,384,364.78 in the general fund. Out of that, we have $551,849.15 that are restricted, which again are our liability insurance, Social Security. Leaving a cash balance in the general fund of $1,832,515.63. I can say, and I put it down on the bottom, the $79,667.37, we made a second payment in January for the health insurance, so that won't be, we will not make a payment in February, so it kind of threw those numbers off just a little bit. So hopefully that won't go down as much in February, but that is our ending available cash in the general fund. Any questions?
Yeah. Erica, you don't have this answer right now, but could we, in the future, look how we compared last year? Just so we got something to track.
Meaning?
Do you have the general fund balance last year, so we know from one year to the next year, we staying similar or are we declining?
I haven't looked, I've just
I know
been
you
doing
don't
the
have
running
the
balance
answer
for
right
this
now.
year,
I
but,
know you don't have it right now,
yeah.
but in the future perhaps. Okay. Any questions? Erica, thank you. Susan? You're on show. Susan, Arthur, Circuit Court, questions, update.
Okay, I think you have everything in your packet as of, this was as of 2/3, as you see what's actually owed to the county is $556,856.56. And I broke it down then into what the total owed and the different places that it goes to. I did just from the fiscal year so far. And then I also added in the back how much we had taken in last year at this time. So just for a comparison on that. So we were taking more, we have taken more this year than we did last year at this time. So, and like I put on there, anybody that wants to come in and check sometime and just see how the process does work, that's fine. We, like to have you come in and we can explain things a little more. No questions?
I just got a comment, I thank you for the comparison.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bobby, go ahead.
So we have the county clerk, right? And you're the circuit clerk.
Right.
For the newbie, can you kind of give a quick overview of what you do, what your encompass, what your job is?
Circuit clerk is over all court records, like any traffic, anything that goes to court, criminal or civil. And we keep all the records and take in fine money. And when people do file a civil suit, they're still, but they have to pay them to take that money in.
Very good.
Any further questions of Susan? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Alan Spesser, County Highway Report.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, this morning, I have 3 petitions, 3 resolutions, and an agreement. I have some updates, and I have an announcement. I think what I'll do is I'll start with the announcement. It's good news. I've been reporting for several months that we were trying to get the Howden Herrick Road project approved through IDOT. for construction in the next fiscal year. I was informed this morning that it has been approved. So that, we have a very busy year planned. That project will either get built this fall or next year, next spring, all within the fiscal year of the state. We have over $2.5 million of construction planned this year, spread out over 6 projects, which is a big total. The other thing I want to make mention is, I think I've reported, well, last month I reported on the staffing out at the county highway department. I lost 2 engineers this month. A year ago I had 3. A year and a half ago I had 4. One found employment elsewhere, and the other one has retired. So it's good for him. And so now I'm down to 1 engineer in addition to myself. I'll go ahead. Yes.
How do you think that's going to impact your department?
It's a significant impact.
Is it going to slow everything down?
Well, I've been talking about a transition in the county highway department with my committee for several years now. The loss of the engineers equals out to be between 70 and 80 years of experience. Now, I'm not going to hire 70 people and in 1 year have all that experience back, but it's more than just losing personnel there. The plan, and it's been, I had a transition plan in place. It's being accelerated now. I'll be hiring more engineering firms to help out. I think we're going to be okay this year. I'm planning on hiring at least 1 engineer. The reality of the matter is when you hire a person, it takes, I'm finding even experienced ones, a couple of years really to get up to speed. So there's that happening too. The good news is we have the funding to do a lot of good things on our highway system right now, especially with the capital bill and the funding that's coming through there. So we're just working through it. We have some things that we have to get finished by statute, like bridge inspections. We have several projects that we have been fortunate enough to get grants for, but they have expiration dates. So in some respects, we can't just slow down and not have some serious impacts. Plus, I feel like we're pretty aggressive in our program anyway, and that's the way I want it. So the plans are, future plans are to keep going that way. First item on things I need to have a meeting with the county board on. I have a petition from the Prairie Highway Commissioner for replacing a rusted out culvert. Estimated cost of $5,500 to be split equally between the township and the county, located approximately 2 miles southwest of Stewartson. I'm asking approval to help Prairie Highway Commissioner with this drainage structure replacement.
We have a motion from Dale. We have a second. Second from Jim Arthur. Any question? There are no questions. Do I have, those who are in favor say yea? Yea. Those who are opposed say nay. Okay, carries. Prairie Highway.
Next item is I have a petition from the Highway Commissioner from Richland Township to replace a small drainage structure that we had to close because it's supported on wood piles that have basically rotted away. So this structure has been closed. The estimated cost to replace it with a pipe is $8,000 to be split equally between the Richland Highway Commissioner in Shelby County. It's located approximately 3.5 miles northwest of Strasburg. So I'm asking approval to proceed with that project and help the Richmond Highway Commissioner with that replacement.
A motion from Jesse Durbin and a second from Frank Holland. Any questions, Dave?
Is it a pipe now, or what is the?
It's a wood supported, I call it a bridge, although technically, just to be clear, why I hesitate to call things bridges, in the eyes of the Illinois Department of Transportation and the Federal Highway Administration, a bridge is a structure that is longer than 20 feet, or 20 feet or longer in length, and this one's about 14 feet, so that's why cleverly say it's drainage structure, but it's basically a bridge, as you would see with wood plank runners. And
So do you think a pipe can handle the water flow?
yeah, that's one thing that has to be done. All these petitions, we have to look at the water that goes through them, the pipes, or these type of structures. We have to look at.
How much was the box culvert?
Sorry?
How much was the box culvert?
Well, there was a box culvert installed earlier this year. The material for that box culvert, not this year, last year, was $24,000, and that did not include labor. This wouldn't be the same size, but in general, these petitions that we get from townships, we try and do the most economical thing. And it's county money going towards these township projects, which they have a right by statute to petition us. That's what these are. And so I try and do the most economical way of doing it to fix the problem, and so that I can spend my county money on county projects.
Okay, any further questions? We've got a first and a second to approve the Richland drainage structures. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay,
Petition, I have another petition from the Ridge Highway Commissioner. It's to replace a rusted out culvert located approximately 2 miles northeast of Westerville. Estimated cost of $3,000 to be split equally between the Highway Commissioner and the township. I'm asking approval to help the Ridge Highway Commissioner with this drainage structure replacement.
do I have a motion? Robert Jordan, do I have a second? Richard Hayden. Any question on this structure? If none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Okay, I have a resolution, several resolutions. Last Friday, we had our annual bid opening for cold mix production. And we make cold mix out at the Highway Department, which goes to maintain the county highways. Also some townships, we asked them if they would like some of it, and we make it for them also as a service to them. We had one bidder for the cold mix production. It was Howell Paving. The bid was for $2.62 a gallon. We plan on ordering 33,000 gallons of material, which we also have sand and rock that goes in with that. That's an increase from last year of $2.14 a gallon. So I'm asking approval to award the Howell Paving for our annual full mix production.
I'll make that one.
Barbara Simpson makes a motion, do I have a second? Barb makes a second. Any question? If no questions, do I have an approval to accept the cold mix bid? Aye. Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, carries.
Also last Friday, we had our annual oil and patch mix bid opening. We had it for the county and also the townships. The highway commissioners for the township have authority to award their contracts. So there's no action by the board required for that. We had the county oil, seal coat oil that we plan on putting down for maintenance this year. We have several categories of oil. The most common oil we use is called an HFB type oil. Low bidder was Howell Paving and only bidder. $2.10 a gallon and $2.14 a gallon, two different types. Last year the oil was $2.02 a gallon. I'm asking approval to award Howell Paving for the seal coat oil and patch mix for this year.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Frank, do I have a second? Larry, seconds. Any questions? Any other discussion? Bobby?
Just curiosity, how come we're only getting one bid on these?
Well, we advertise in the state bulletin, which goes out clear across the state for any bidders. Sometimes we do have more than one bidder. Most of the time, we only have one.
Very specialized situation. There's not a lot of people.
There's not a lot of
I
competition.
think there's only two places you really get oil out of the state. That's one's Wood River and one's over around Champaign, but I know.
Geographics is kind of an issue, and people don't want to go from Springfield or Chicago to come down here to Will Road. Somebody local, more local is going to be, then, I just curious.
Okay, the last resolution I have, and then I have an agreement after that. I have a resolution for a multiple task order engineering services agreement with.
Hang on. We have a first and a second on,
Oh, I'm sorry.
on for the
Yes, it has to
oil
be
and, the county oil and patch mix. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, Alan, now you can move on.
All right. My last resolution, and I have agreement after that, is for a multiple task order engineering service agreement with Hammond and Reed Land Serving Company. They are a local firm that I have met with that will help with the construction oversight, bridge inspections, design work out at the County Highway Department on a task order type agreement. I'm asking approval to enter into that agreement.
Do I have a motion? Larry Lenz, I have a second from Kay Carney. Any questions? If we have no questions, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Okay.
The last item I have is, several months ago, we passed a petition from the Highway Commissioner in Okanee Township to replace a bridge, a 10-ton posted bridge in Okanee Township. After you pass the petitions, usually I pass an engineering agreement pretty much the next month. I've held off on doing that because of all the work we have already on the books, but it's now time to do that. So I have an agreement with Hutchison Engineering that I would like the county board to consider. It's to replace the bridge located in Okanee Township, located approximately a mile and a half southeast of Okanee. The funding for this bridge for the engineering will be 80% state funding and 20% local funds. The local funds are to be split equally between the township and the county. Once the engineering is complete, and that usually takes several years to do this before they're actually ready to be built or in line for, depending on funding, the construction will be 80% federal funds, 16% state funds, and the remaining 4% would be split equally between the county and the township. So I'm asking approval for the county to enter into agreement with Hutchison Engineering to replace the bridge in Okanee Township.
So good, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we've got a motion from Robert and a second from Earl. Any question regarding this engineering agreement?
How do we know what kind of money we're talking on the engineering? Is that set by a scale? Is it?
There are several different types of engineering agreements. They are standard forms from IDOT, but there's different selections, and different engineering firms do it differently. In general, they're all The ones that I hire are all in the same ballpark for funds, but it is difficult to know how much it's going to cost. They do provide me an estimate.
You always worry about being blindsided with a lot more money than anticipating. Do you have that idea beforehand when you go into this project?
For the most part, but I won't say things have not happened that have gone the wrong way, so to speak. There's several wild cards in any bridge design. One of them is environmental. And there has to be an environmental evaluation of the area. And sometimes there's special design requirements for that, which change the fee and the design. Another, right away, that type of thing.
Any other questions? If none, do I have those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Okay, that's your signature.
Okay, just a few updates. Okay, bridges that are currently under construction are in Windsor and Ash Grove, in Windsor Township, and on the Ash Grove Big Spring Township line. It was ceased last fall due to weather. I expect the construction to begin on those two bridges in April or May of this year. Bridge inspections. My department is currently going through bridge inspections every year. We do half of the county 1 year and the other half the next year, with some exceptions. There's some that are on a 4-year basis, and there are also some special inspections that are done. Special inspections are those bridges that are of concern and can't wait every other year to be inspected. Some of them are like on a 6-month inspection. This year we're doing the east half of the bridge, east half of the county, and that is underway right now. That is a federal requirement for our department to do that. And we have certain due dates we have to have it done by. Okay, the bridge in Prairie Township that is closed, located approximately 2 miles northwest of Stewartson, has been approved by audit to be bid and constructed this year. It is approved to be bid on June 12th. There was a bridge in Richland Township, located on the township line between Richland and Prairie Township, that had to be closed a few weeks ago due to structural deficiencies. It's located approximately 2 miles west of Strasburg. IDOT informed us they do random inspections on our bridges, and they also do inspections as when we request them, and they also do inspections periodically, roughly a 10-year basis. This bridge was inspected by them, and actually this bridge we had concerns about after our inspection. Wood piles rotted. They evaluated it, and it is now closed for traffic. Railroad crossing approaches. We have 2 railroad crossing approaches planned for construction this year. Safety approaches. There will be lights and gates that will be done by the railroad. We construct the approaches to them. This is 100% funded projects, and we will get the engineering reimbursed on that. Our time and the help that I plan on getting for those bridges, for those railroad crossings. The one in Clarksburg Township, I hope to bid either in March or April of this year. So I'll be able to update you on that status each month. The final update I have is that I talked about we had quite a discussion on our snow removal process policy last month, and I mentioned that we really didn't have one written in place. It was just one that had been done for years and years. I have written our current practice for snow removal, in a form that will eventually be, I believe, will eventually be presented to the county board. Currently, I went over it with the committee, my Road and Bridge Committee, on Monday, and they have a copy of it and are reviewing it, and we'll discuss it again at our next meeting next month, and I'll just keep you up to date on that. And that is my report.
Has anybody got any questions of Alan? If none, thank you, Alan. Dale Weatherall, Public Buildings.
I figured to see Kenny out here doing a dance when he announced that first thing about Herrick Road there. My agenda here is going to be what we had at our meeting here, so I won't be following along with the way it's written up right there. First thing that we discussed at our meeting was courthouse electrical repairs by D&M Electrical. Monday, February the 17th is a holiday for the courthouse, so we can shut it all down and make the change over the entrances, providing the weather is going to be cooperative. We were supposed to have it once before, and the weather was bitterly cold and windy and everything, so they put it off. So this is February the 17th. So any of you department heads, if you got computers, anything that you need to back up or anything, be sure and get that all done this weekend here, because Monday morning, tentatively, it will be shut off. Our next thing here is a proposal by D&M to bury the propane tank just south of the generator, instead of burning natural gas with CIPS. We had quite a bit of discussion on this here. The committee said, Public Building Committee recommends to the full county board to accept the bid from D&M Electrical for burial of a 1,000-gallon LP tank south of the new generator for $6,900. I so move.
Need a second on that motion? Got a second by Jim Arthur. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. We've had a long discussion on this here, burying this tank, so if anybody got any questions or advice, we need it probably, because
How come you have to bury it?
it's kind of questionable what we're doing.
David?
So why did you decide to go with propane instead of LP, or natural gas, excuse me?
When the committee first came in, there wasn't a person in there that was going to vote for burying the tank. After seeing the different costs and things, we haven't got anything back from CIPS. We've asked them for 2 months now, ever since we started talking about the generator. They still have not given us a price on it. They're hesitant about boring over from, they're supposed to be boring over from the detention center to the courthouse. They want to set up to the courthouse building and put the meter on the courthouse or close to the courthouse building. They want to cut out a piece of the new concrete sidewalk there on the west side. We're not real big in favor of doing that. We tried to get them to come up next to the generator. They do not want to come up next to the generator with that.
There's not natural gas in the courthouse?
Okay, the cost. I done some checking. We used the figure of $150 a month for just the meter charge. That's $1,800 a year that we'd be paying, and we wouldn't be getting any gas in that part there. That's just strictly having that meter sitting out there. We figured up that there in 3 years' time, we're going to be paying for a new tank, or the cost of the tank. I checked with CIPS. Jared gave me his cost from his meter over here. The cheapest meter that you can get is $55.25. The next step up, which is kind of what they told us we was going to be getting at, they said was like $278 a month. But she said that is dependent upon the amount of gas that you use, what your rate is. So we figured if we're using 150, we're probably in the ballpark. If somebody else knows more about gas, you can.
There's not natural gas in the courthouse?
No. They're still at natural gas. When we switched over and took that doghouse off the northeast corner, went to geothermal, we've done away with the gas, so there's no meter there anymore.
Was there any gas at all there? I mean, that was a coal-fired farm. I don't think you had.
It was a
Gas that come from the Catholic Church over from to power that furnace.
And we don't have the gas.
I don't think we got any on the property that had to cut that off.
What I was told, that they cut it off on the other side of the road. They cut it off back.
Yeah, there was that Catholic church here, the old Catholic church, I mean.
What's the price of the buried tank? I read your minutes and I thought it was like $6,900. Did I read that wrong?
$6,900 for the tank and the burial of it. You know, it's gotta be a specialized tank for burial. I checked with Roy Miller for, Miller Propane and things. He said they don't do it. He says if somebody wants it done, they'll have somebody else. What I understand is FS is supposed to be doing this. Jessica asked about EPA things. Yes, FS has already gone through the EPA and checked that all out. So it will be a coated tank that'll be buried. It'll be put in sand and covered up. It'll have a concrete stand-up riser. Is that right, Gary? But that's the only thing that you see on the west side of the courthouse. Barb?
How come it has to be buried? I mean, can't we just leave it out?
Could, it'd be a 1,000-gallon tank on the sidewalk right there.
It's a 50-foot, you have to be 50 feet from any residence.
Okay.
They'd be on the street. That's pretty much right.
I'm on the committee and I walked into the meeting totally opposed to going to the LP for several reasons. But when it comes down to cost, also when you go into a lot of facilities where they have generator systems, a lot of times you're required to put in LP gas backup to it. In case of natural disaster, you're more likely to lose your gas supply.
That's not true.
Well, that's,
The generator only has one regulator.
but it can be set up to where it will do.
Yeah, but you'll have to change regular, so
Yeah.
it's not.
But, it just financially, and it's underground 18 inches, it's, protected that way from somebody shooting a hole in it or, you know, adding it, by being underground, it's pretty well protected. When we got through the discussion, it was, I think all of us in the same boat. We kind of went from no way to financially, this is probably the better deal for us.
Excuse me, to his point there about a natural disaster, I talked to Jared about that too, and he says, well, actually, natural gas would probably be a little bit better well, not better, but it would be, the only way the natural disaster would bother, it wouldn't probably happen with an earthquake, but it might happen, say, if you had a tornado someplace, that CIPS, I guess they have zones, is that correct? And they would shut a whole zone down, so if we happen to be in that zone, they would shut us down even though we weren't affected by that area. So with the propane, you know, you've got control of what you've got there.
Denny?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the safety rating on the tank for being buried, but I think you already covered that. My question is, even with a specialized tank, you bury it, what is the life expectancy of that tank? Are we gonna have to do this again in 5 years?
Roy Miller told me that he says he's not sure, it's either a yearly pressure test that has to be performed on them or every 5 years. He said, now he didn't know which one it was for sure, but he said it does have to be tested, so it will be like certified each time.
This does have a special coating on the tank as far as rusting and deterioration. It's, what do you say, half-inch thick?
Could have, I didn't.
It's a very heavy.
And I agree with that.
And, he said the time you put it that deep in the ground and as far as something hitting it or puncturing it, it'd be pretty difficult.
Okay, so I've got a first and a second.
I
We've
do
had
have
some
one more quick
discussion.
question.
Yes.
Approximately how many gallons of propane a year do you expect to use?
Probably not that much, because that was come up at the committee meeting too, as about if this thing runs, you know, we have a problem, is this gonna run out in a day or two? And D&M said it would probably take at least a week and a half that it would run on one 1,000-gallon tank, running continually for that.
Do I have any further questions?
I've had the people concerned about the safety of this propane tank, that's what I'm worried about, you know, courthouse wise, you know. I voted to get the propane, but then I wasn't in favor of it really, but then the other option was really good, so.
still feel propane's probably the better of the two.
Yeah. So, that's another concern, you know. I want to bring forward the board because everybody knows what we're doing here, right or wrong.
There was some concerns mentioned about getting from where the gas is over to where we need it. And doing the underground boring, that there may be problems going there and go around, so.
Okay. Another thing too, that was, brought up was, that I wanna mention for you department heads and everything, it was brought up too about the generator running outside, you know, when it kicks on, it's gotta exercise. It will exercise for 20 minutes when it does. Well, we can set this for any time. Right now, we're going to set it up for 7 o'clock in the morning. Tim Culberson was kind of worried about that if we had to try it on the weekend, that nobody would be around to hear it, to see if it was actually doing its job. So what we're planning on is 7 o'clock in the morning that it'd kick on and run until 7:20. So, you know, if anybody, we knew there was a couple that come in 7 o'clock in the morning, but didn't figure it would interfere with your business time.
Will that be a daily run or a weekly?
Weekly, correct?
Okay.
Now, do they think that that would create a noise problem?
20 minutes.
I don't think it will, but, you know, we'll have to wait till we fire it up.
Reason I ask that is there's a lot of concerns out there about noise now with OSHA.
Debbie?
I did talk to the committee when they had their meeting the other day, and I did voice my concern about the noise, because the sheriff's office does run theirs, and it's quite loud, and this generator sits right outside my window, and I was just a bit concerned about the noise, because those windows are pretty thin, and then the other thing was possibly the exhaust that might come from that generator, because the windows are thin. And I'll tell you, when D&M were working down there, I could smell their cigarette smoke. So, come up through, and I'm really not that sensitive, but I could smell it. And I could hear all their conversations. So my only concern was the noise. And they assured me it wouldn't be as loud as the one at the sheriff's office.
What decibels is that rated then? They should have a rating on that decimal point, noise level on that.
But either have to ask D&M or check on the generator if it's got.
Dale, you say that's gonna run one day a week, approximately 20 minutes. So are they gonna have a person that comes by and checks that to make sure that does kick off? I mean, do maintenance on it
This
periodically?
probably to Tim Culberson that would be checking on that.
Okay, thank you.
Dale, Debbie brings up a good question about the CO. The average person will ingest CO at a rate of 250 times quicker than it will oxygen. So you may ask your people that are doing the installing to do some tests. Not only outside around it, but on the inside, like you said, like in her office. Because that could develop into a problem.
Well, I like Debbie's point. That gives us a good plug when we're moving ahead on a 5-year plan about windows.
And I wasn't suggesting we do that.
I understand, but we look for any excuse to get it.
Okay, let's call this question. We have a first and a second on the floor for approval of a $6,900 installation and burial of a 1,000-gallon LP tank. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, one nay. Dale, go ahead.
Okay, third item here was a generator maintenance agreement. We got 2 agreements. One was from D&M and the other was for Bodine. Bodine does the sheriff's department over there. They were fairly close in bid and everything the same. We figured since Bodine was doing the sheriff's department, they could do the courthouse at the same time. We really didn't get a big break. Bodine was $534 for maintenance, and D&M was $500. So
So,
Mr. Chairman, Public Building Committee recommends the full county board to accept the maintenance agreement from D&M Electrical for a new Cummings generator for an annual fee of $500 a year.
do I have a
I
motion?
so move.
Please, Dale, do I have a second? Second by Gary. Any discussion?
That is a one-year contract, so at the end of the year, we could maybe make the two together or work out whatever we want to and see how that goes.
Any further question? Those in favor of the contract for 1 year at $500, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Dale? you're up.
Number 4, courthouse security scanner. As if you realize, if you've been coming to the courthouse, when you come in, he's got to wand you. He doesn't run you through the machine or anything because it's obsolete right now. Sheriff got a bid from the only person around that we know that services in the South Chicago, Illinois. They have a labor rate of $165 an hour. They charge from the time they leave Chicago till they get down here, and the time they leave here to go all the way back. Also, plus when they're here. I'll go ahead and read the recommendation. Full County Board recommends, or the Public Building Committee recommends to the Full County Board to accept the bid from Auto Clear for security scanner repair for $7,523. I so move.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Jim Arthur. Any discussion on the security scanner?
There's nobody else that does it?
Not that we can find around. We even talked about the idea of us loading it up and taking it to Chicago to get rid of it. And Sheriff says, well, he says, I don't know of anybody that wants to be responsible for unhooking it, taking it up there, bringing it back, and not getting it jarred so it's out of kilter again. And then we have to hire somebody to come down and recalibrate it or whatever they do to it. Start with, it's just something I guess we're gonna have to bite the bullet on too. The labor part was like $3,300 of this part right here.
Who's doing the airport and the state capitol equipment?
We're not involved in that.
No, I mean, but who does that? We got one out of Chicago to do that, or local? I don't know. Just a thought.
Any further discussion? I have a motion and a second to replace the security scanner at,
It's to repair.
to repair the security scanner at the count house for a bid of $7,523. No further questions? Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Okay.
So just a couple other notes here. Geothermal repairs at the courthouse there, are 2 units that have gone down. As I reported before, we keep always having a couple of units that drop off every once in a while. Remember several years ago, we had a brownout in Shelbyville with CIPS. And this is one thing our new generator will hopefully keep from doing, because if there's a 10% drop in electricity or a 10% spike in electricity, this generator will kick on and run. So hopefully we've got a backup right there. In the Board of Review's office downstairs, their unit does not work at all. The ones in Tim's office, which is right across, both of these are on the bottom floor on the very south end. Tim's partially works. There's not a problem right now because most of it has to do with air conditioning, so we don't need the air conditioning part. But, you know, Board of Review probably will not be working if we have to have heat or anything there either. We did table this here because we wanted to see whether they could, see what my notes say. We're going to wait on cost for the cost of a new unit down there in the Board of Review to see how much, because Tim said he thought most of that repair of the $2,900, that $2,200 of that was going to go into the Board of Review thing, and if it's going to be within pretty close to that, we thought we might just want to go to a new unit. What the problem is, when they take this unit out, they've got to take the unit completely out, freeze the lines and the liquid that are in there, and pull this whole unit out. And the unit, the thing they need replacing on the very back side of the unit. So we're going to wait till we get a cost of a new unit as compared to just repairing this unit. the last, or one other item that we had was a courthouse clock maintenance contract. We did table this at our committee for the simple reason that last year, it's a $2,000 contract, annual contract. And last year, we paid $2,000 and nothing ever happened. I mean, we didn't get a bit for our money. So what we're asking to do is to see if the fellow would want to go to an hourly rate for it. We'll have to wait on a reply back. Sheriff's checking into this here, so. One other thing we talked about was the.
Dale, you said that last year we paid $2,000 and we didn't get any bang for our buck.
Correct.
Is that because, why?
Well, part of it was because we was doing the maintenance on the roof and everything.
Okay.
You know, you couldn't really get around, we had the clock kind of disassembled. So, you know, I'm not faulting him completely on that there, but I did understand, correct me if I'm wrong, Jared, that the part for the, I guess it's some gear. What you've got is a clock mechanism, and it's probably about this big up there. And it goes out to a shaft out there that goes to a cog that goes up, and there's 4 big prongs that run out to the clock there that take the timer out and everything. Was it gears or something that got stripped up or something? And
You have to be custom made.
is it John out at the airport committee? He took that under himself, that he made new gears for us, and we had those reinstalled. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He had a contact in Chicago who made it.
Okay.
John Hall.
And they got put in, and then something was off, and it stripped the gear, so he did it again for us. And this time here, we're wanting to make sure it's put in right to get it going.
Well, with us paying $2,000 last year and not getting anything for it, we still want to go back with the same guy?
Well, it's kind of a special thing.
Find another.
To find another person, it's not like we're going to the next jeweler and finding.
Well, it's an antique.
We are looking around to see if we can, and that's another reason why we tabled it. If we're not gonna go at an hourly rate, I think Effingham down here has somebody that works on theirs, and I was gonna contact.
You might try Mr. Bill Kennedy over at Taylorville that takes care of the Christian County clock.
What was his name again?
Bill Kennedy.
Bill Kennedy.
Taylorville.
I know that he, I believe it's every Saturday, he goes up there and walks all those stairs and up to the tower, steeple, whatever you want to call it, and checks that all out on a weekly basis. And he is quite well informed about it, so
Did you happen to have his contact information? Or?
I can probably get it.
Okay, thank you. I'll wait on that too. Listen, that's, we tabled that right there because we didn't want to be spending money again. Basically, I think what they were supposed to be doing is going up and oiling and making sure everything was operating, reset the time for it was off. One other item that we discussed was the water usage. This last month, or it was back in December, water usage at the detention center was $600 and some. The rest of them are like around 70. You know, like the highway department, the courthouse, all of them are all under $100. Like $70, I think is the highest. Any of those there, the dive team, all of those, which I didn't realize the dive team had their own water and stuff. But this next month here, the detention center, they're run like, City of Shelbyville runs just like 2 months behind in the rear, is what they call it. And so the January bill is going to be coming in at $474. So it did drop quite considerably there. They did have some leaks over at the detention center. They think they may have got them. Also at that time, did you say, Gary, that they had the water softener?
Water softener was having trouble, they replaced that. Hopefully that's going to cut some up too.
And that's all that I have for my report. Okay?
I just would like to make a comment or opinion back on your scanner, courthouse security scanner. I just feel very strongly, and I've mentioned this before, I've sat in a couple meetings where we've discussed who goes through the scanner and who does not. And I don't see how the courthouse can ever be secure until we implement where every person, employees, courtroom, county board members, everyone goes through the scanner. I just don't see spending the money to do it and think that we're secure if we don't all go through it.
That's up to you county board people, whatever you guys recommend, and, I mean, it probably would come from the law enforcement committee, is that right?
We have discussed it in law enforcement committee.
'Cause, I mean, we don't make a recommendation there on that.
Yeah, I think Kay has a good idea,
Yeah.
Kay. I don't think we can take any action on it today.
No, I just don't see any sense of
I think
keeping
that,
it functional and running if we're not really securing the courthouse.
I got a question. You got employees that come in one door and then another door. What?
Not anymore.
They all come through?
They all are to come through that one door during
Okay.
the time the courthouse is open. They may use the other door if they come in on the weekend or something like that to work. But otherwise, they are all supposed to be
Okay.
coming in, right? Am I right?
Well, but then you need to shut that door off completely between 8 and 4, and that's not the current situation.
And I thought it
I've
was.
seen various, officers from other cities, et
Except for
cetera.
transporting prisoners, I thought it was.
Well, no, it's not.
Okay. Sorry to find that out.
Unless there was something new next week.
You done with me?
done with you, man.
Sorry, Terry.
It's okay.
Okay, committee reports. Do we have committees that have reports available? I'm just gonna run through the committee list. Fees and salaries. Barb, have you got any updates?
No, everything's okay.
Okay. Purchasing, Lynn Williams, any updates?
No, everything's fine.
Okay, we've heard from the county farm. Bob, nothing further, right? Okay. Finance, budget committee is gonna be held on, the 27th, 9 a.m. at the courthouse. Yep, courtroom B, Thursday, February 27th, for budget committee. Animal control, we've heard about the loose animals. Is there any further update? Terry, do you have an update? Bob, I know you weren't here last month, so. Okay. Road
I
and
thought
bridge,
the state was supposed to help out on that deal,
well,
those loose animals.
Well,
what they
since-
help you catch them.
Since it's going to court action type stuff, that guy was gonna be here today, but it's kinda on hold right now until we.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
usually, when it's animals, cows, horses, then the state comes in on that deal, when it gets past dogs and cats.
I think they will, but I think the cost still relies, we still have some costs.
Well, we've had some.
Road and bridge, we've heard. County public health, anything update there? Kenny Barr?
No.
Okay. EMA, Frank, anything going on with EMA? We've already heard about the emergency telephone system.
No, that's basically it.
Law enforcement, anything new with law enforcement last month? Zoning? Bob? Airport, Bob, again?
Well, the jet fuel's not working again, so that's down.
They are narrowing it down to the wire harness now, they're looking at, so.
This jet fuel system's a major improvement that the airport got a couple of years ago that's really never worked right since it's been put in. It's a real problem.
And after I talked to Gina about writing a letter, it started working. Scared him to death. And then we met the other night and they said it quit working again. I said, wow.
So we may be needing you, Gina, to help.
I come in with a helicopter that charged you $1 to fill it up.
That's what it charged.
Got back with
Public buildings, we've heard from you. Liquor, nothing. Legislative, Gary? do you have
Yes,
anything?
we met on the 27th of January. We had 2 closed sessions, one on the 8th of May and one 12th of June. And all dealing with court proceedings, and we felt it was best time being to leave those closed until we know for sure what's going to happen and take place there.
Anything going on with insurance this month? No. Okay, budget, that's announced, we're having a budget committee. Chairman updates. As Alan mentioned, we've been reviewing snowplow routes. I've gotten several calls, I know others have, from people up in the Findlay area, and Oakall Valley High School Superintendent Kurt Stoddard has called me. The Oakall Valley shuttles about 200 kids up and down County Highway 3 on a daily basis. County Highway 2, that runs between Findlay and the Moultrie County Highway to the north for the students. And then County Highway 3 runs east and west across Findlay. That happens to be one of our highest traffic roads in the county as far as county highways go. It connects us to Interstate 57 and it connects us to US 51. My recommendation is that next year we salt those roads. That's next year that we salt those roads. The current policy does not include salt for all these roads, those two roads. This has been my recommendation to the Road and Bridge Committee. The Road and Bridge Committee is considering it. Maybe my recommendation will not be taken, but it's nevertheless my recommendation. Sexual harassment. Jessica sent out emails to all of us this month. There's been sexual harassment training at the county. Sexual harassment training by webinar, I believe, is available. Is that correct? Or
It's not available yet.
it's not available yet?
Not yet.
As soon as it becomes available, we're all responsible for reviewing that and making ourselves clear on what that may entail.
Chairman?
Yes, sir, Kenny.
We have a road from Herrick to Cowden at the school bus route. About, I don't know.
In the Cowden Herrick Road, which he's talking about, is the one that's also getting repaved. That one's also being considered for salt.
That was gonna be for salt too?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't understand.
Although it sure doesn't complain like our other roads do. The difference in the complaining is Fayette County treats their roads the same way Shelby County does. We plow, we throw some salt down, and we throw some a mix of salt and sand down at intersections and on hills. But Moultrie County is using salt, so it's real obvious up at Shelbyville or up at Findlay where there's no salt. But yes, that your road had been brought up as well. It's on the.
I think they run a shuttle there too.
Between Cowden and Harris.
Do they? Okay.
2 or 3 passes a day.
So they're running a shuttle as well. Okay, good.
I didn't want you to
Okay. Those are my updates. Now, as far as appointments go, we've got some openings on Road and Bridge and on the Law Enforcement Committee. And I want to move some different department heads around a little bit. And I don't know, I don't know that do I need motions to move people around?
Choose the points on there.
You're the point.
I'm
I mean,
point,
you're making the
Okay. I
committees,
make
but
the
you need a
appointments.
motion and a, yeah.
yeah. So, on fees and salaries, I'd like to change the chairman of fees and salaries from Barb to Frank. I think Barb's been very embattled there this year, and I want to give her a break. And I'd like to put Frank up as the chairman of fees and salaries. Do I have a motion?
I'll make it.
Barb? Second. I have a second from Denny. Any discussion? Being none, those in favor of moving Frank up to the chairman of fees and salaries, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Keep the same people on that committee.
The same people will remain, I just want to put you up as chairman.
Okay.
get to be a spokesman, Frank, because you're very eloquent and you have a lot of journalistic background.
He's saying I don't.
Yes, you do.
I can call him boss now, and he said he'd call me boss.
Okay, on finance, I am no longer on finance as chairman because I'm chairman of the board. I'd like to recommend Gary Patterson be the chairman. Everything will stay the same in line, but I will ask Laverne Cheney,
Levon. It's all right.
Lavon Cheney to join the finance committee as a new appointee. And I need a motion for Gary Patterson to be chairman and Lavon to be made a member.
Motion moved.
Dale.
Discussion, do you need two
Hang
separate?
on, let's get a first and a second. We have a first from Dale and a second from Gary, now
Yes,
discussion.
did you need two different motions for that? Because it was two different, one for the,
I think it's one motion is fine.
One committee.
One committee,
that's all I'm asking.
okay. Those in, any discussion? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Okay, animal control. Bob, I'm gonna move you down to vice chairman because you've been sick for a few months and we needed people there. Nothing against you, you've done a great job, but Terry, I'm gonna ask you to take the chairman's position. And it really just simply boils down to because he's there every time. So we've got a better handle on Bob. I'd like Terry to do this, and I need a motion to make Terry the
So moved.
chairman. Made by Levon, second by me. By Bob. All in favor, say aye. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Okay, road and bridge, we've got a vacancy here. I've given this a lot of thought. Dave Pruitt's gone. I've talked to several board members, thought about it, and I'm gonna ask Brian Kaufman to fill that vacancy. Be Brian, myself as chairman, Larry Lenz as vice chairman, Jesse Durbin, and Brian Kaufman. Do I have a motion? Dale, I have a second from Richard. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Thank you. Law enforcement. I'm gonna move Kay off of the law enforcement committee. I think she's been very embattled there. I'd like to move Gary Patterson up to the chairman of the law enforcement. And I'd like to appoint Denny Durnovich as the third member of law enforcement. Do I have a motion?
I'll make it.
Barb, second from Richard. Any discussion? Hearing none, do I have those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed say no. And that's all the changes I have. I do want fees and salaries to take on a special project that I started to mention last month. I want you to look into our personnel relations across the county, from the personnel director on down. I want you to follow up on discrepancies in payroll. I think that we have enough reason to believe that our payroll records have not been very accurate, but I want you to stay on top of what Gina gets started and report back to us on this. I want you to seek, I think that human resources has been turned upside down in the last year, and I think for a good reason. But I think that everything that Jessica and Erica have learned need to be implemented. And I want the human resources or the fees and salaries to work with them, seek a solution that works for the county. It may mean that I want you to look at whether or not we want to keep human resources in-house or whether we need an outside third party. I want you to look at the costs of this stuff. We definitely need a human resources handbook, a personnel handbook. I'm not sure that we have the capability of producing that right now. I think we need to look into what that will take, what services may be available. You may have to have some special meetings. I think you need to work with Erica and Jessica, because they've got some very good solutions. We've got to have a common record keeping across the county for keeping track of our hours, keeping track of checking, clocking in, and we're going to have to work with all members of management so that we're all in agreement, and I want to get a solution to this thing as soon as possible. I think you need to bring in the union reps to work with on this, as well as members of management. And I'd like to outline, say, I'd like a meeting to be held after this meeting, before the next board meeting, an organizational meeting. I'd like you to get some names of some people, and a plan together to go forward with this. Finance, Gary, you've just been made chairman. Levon, Terry, I want you to establish a monthly meeting with Erica. I want you to work on developing these reports that she's got. I really like this available cash report on 029. I think it's a good report. I want to get familiar with it. I want to understand what makes it the valleys and the troughs in the flow of this account. Erica is able to provide reports to us that past treasurers were not able to provide. I think you need to work with her to develop income projections for future budget years, as well as expense variables. If we vary expenses, how's it going to impact us? I think these would be good reports to have at budget time. I want you guys to get familiar with this monthly investment report that we're being shown every month that we approve. What's this mean? Where are these accounts? I know that these are mainly restricted accounts. What is a restricted account? How many of you guys on the board know what a restricted account is? New guys? Yeah. So you sort of know. 2 new guys. But let's take a breakdown of these accounts that's been asked for, and let's understand what these accounts make up and how we can spend them, so that at budget time, when the budget committee comes in and says, this is our recommendations, some of the whole board maybe has got some ideas. And I don't think that, like Gary, if we could break that down into small topics every month, let's just get some education going. My note was pick a category for funds each month. Let's get a detailed explanation and understand what these funds really are. And as far as formats that these need to be presented in, let's keep them in generally accepted accounting format, which I think everybody's doing. That's a list of my appointments,
No, there's still
correspondence.
several more.
Oh, hang on, that's a list of my appointments. Then I have the appointments that are for the other committees. We have appointments needed to the Emergency Telephone Systems Board, 1-year term. Sean McQueen is recommended. Do I have an approval or a motion to approve Sean McQueen for the ETS board? So moved by Gary, second by Bobby Orman. Those in favor, any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Okay. We also have Troy Agnew, requested to be appointed to the ETS board for a 1-year term. Dale Weatherall, or Dale moves. Do I have a second? Second by Jesse Durbin. Those in any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Third appointment for ETSB board, Bobby Orman for a 3-year term to replace Frank Maholland. Denny Durnovich, do I have a second? Frank Maholland? Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Zoning Board of Appeals, Betsy Stillabauer has been recommended. Do I have a motion? Denny Durnovich. Second by Robert Simpson. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Planning Commission, Tom Horstman has been recommended. We have a motion by Terry, second by Jesse Durbin. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Tom Horstman carries. That's the end of my chairman appointments. I do not have any correspondence that I know of. Now time for public body comment. Is there any public body comment? You in the back, come on up, give us your comment. I don't know you, so.
Well. I guess I go here.
Come right on up.
We want to do good in front of a lot of people, so we're just trying to struggle with this. Good morning. Morning. I got something I want to read to you, and then I'll explain to you.
Your name.
Yeah, my name is Dave Palmer. Okay. Last fall, I was informed that a friend of mine received disability exemption from his property taxes. He knew that I had been asking about this for 4 years. I took my letter from Social Security up to the courthouse, and there I was informed that you cannot use that letter. The only way to receive the exemption was to go to the driver's license facility and get a disability application for an identification card. So I did this. Now, when you're there, you fill out the top of this piece of paper, and I'm going to show it to you. I got it right here. And then you need to take it to your doctor, where they fill out the middle part of it, and then the last part of it, you return to the driver's facility to finish the paper and get your picture taken. Now, all this takes time to get done. So anyway, I was in Charleston to get a copy of 2 of my children's birth certificates that were born in Sarah Bush. So while I was at the courthouse there, I went to ask their assessor's office about this. And they told me that my letter from Social Security, which is COLA, a lot of people know by, had a D1 on the bottom of it, and that is all I needed, no reason to get an identification card. They gave me a copy of what they call the P-Tax 343. A couple days later, I was in Effingham, so I visited their courthouse, where they told me the same thing. So I finally got my paperwork done from the doctor, which I told you takes time. I took it to the driver's license facility, and I got my picture taken, and I was given my temporary card. And what that card looks like is a driver's license, other than you can't drive on it. So I took it to the courthouse, and I asked them, why wasn't I able to use my Social Security letter? I was told that this was set up by a guy which is no longer with us. I guess he's deceased, so I don't want to talk about him, and the Department of Revenue. Now, knowing I can't call him because he was gone, but I did call the Department of Revenue, where they told me it is a statute that they must follow the requirements on the form. They were to call the courthouse and tell them this. They told me if my letter had a D1 on the bottom of it, that it qualifies. It's sad that I can go visit another courthouse, and they couldn't be any nicer. They gave me the form I needed, and they told me if I needed anything else, I can come back. Now here in Shelby County, where I told them I was in Charleston, and I told them I was in Effingham courthouses, and you know what they told me? They said that there's 102 counties in this state, and I could just visit all of them. Isn't that a nice comeback? Now, well, I'm just going to skip the rest of that because it's really not important, and I don't want to waste your time, okay? But anyway, because of bad information from the courthouse and having to wait on my doctor, I lost my right to my exemption last year. I don't expect them, when I go to the courthouse, to give me legal advice, but when they have the forms right there in their offices, they should pass them out to people so they can get things done. Taxpayers pay their salaries, so they should do their job to the best of their ability. And if they can't do the job right, then they should excuse themselves. I have a hard time believing Shelby County would want a reputation for discriminating against people with disability. Now this is the form they asked me to go get at the driver's license facility. It's real simple. You fill out this top half, and then your doctor has to fill this out. And then, of course, then you go back to the driver's place. Well, most people on disability, well, they're on Medicare. So you just cost the Medicare money for no reason at all. For no reason at all. Now these forms, and these are the forms that they gave me in Charleston. And if you read these, it'll tell you, and I'll let you see these because I think you're in charge of here. This one here is the 343, and here's the 343A, okay? Okay, and it tells you right on here, the acceptable proof of disability is listed on the back of this form. If you're unable to provide this, then you've got to go to the physician. Well, you'll see right here, proof of Social Security Administration, D1 at the back. And this one here, if you read that, flip this over, which is our instructions, it's D1 again. Okay? Now I'll show you what a D1 looks like. But this is given me by the Social Security Administration. I get one every year. And if you look at the bottom of it, you'll see my D1. Now, I was told that this was all set up at the courthouse with the Department of Revenue. Well, I called them, and the Department of Revenue said, this is a statute, they've got to follow the rules, and they were going to call them. I just think that when you go to the courthouse, there shouldn't be a mindset up there that everybody's better than you. We pay their salaries. And because of their giving me a lack of information, I lost my credit last year, my exemption, and I don't think that's right. So anyway, I appreciate your time to listen to me. I hope it wasn't loud. Any questions?
No.
Nope. All right, thank you.
I will speak to that.
Okay.
Mr. Palmer was never denied his exemption. We actually have his application. The first time I was ever notified or saw Mr. Palmer was after the 1st of January this year. He may have called on the phone, I don't know. He may have not shown the Social Security information, I don't know. I do know we do request most of the time that we get a P2 card like he signed up with. So we have a few that have signed up with their application from the Social Security, and it's a specific application. Their award letter, I don't know that we ever saw an award letter. So Mr. Palmer was never denied his exemption. You cannot, it's not retroactive to the year you became disabled, it's only falls in the year that you sign up, just like all other exemptions.
First of all, that's not true, okay?
And
I had
then
this
again,
with me.
Mr. Palmer, I want to say, no one in my office said, there's 102 counties in Shelby County. And no one said that I'm aware of.
Absolutely did.
And I was not in there then when that happened. And you also came in my office, and I did hear this from you personally. You said, I called or I came in and everyone said there was no disability exemption. And I told you at that time, no one in my office would have told you that. We have disability exemptions and we have people who sign up for them all the time. And you then told me, well, it probably wasn't this office. And general phone calls, I don't know. We don't know what people have in their general phone calls, so I don't know. So as far as the first I ever knew of this was the first part of January this year.
You're right, you don't know about all the phone calls, you're correct there.
But a phone
Okay.
call,
I had
a
this-
phone call is not,
We cannot resolve this at a county board meeting here. I understand Mr. Palmer's complaint. You understand it.
and he is signed up. He was never denied.
For
We
next
never
year,
denied him.
for next year.
Okay, I
Because
understand.
that's the first time you came in to fill out the paperwork.
No, it's not.
Well, my staff says they never saw you in there before.
They did because they actually got on the calculator and told me how much it would save me.
I don't know that.
Sounds
But I
You're
do
right, you
know-
don't.
I do
Sounds like
know
there's some
that you
unknowns.
were.
If I had this, why would I need that?
Well, we can't resolve that.
But
You're right, you
You
can,
can
you're
sign
right.
up with either one.
But what I'm hoping
You can
is
sign up with
I
either
set
one.
a,
Sure that this does not occur again. I understand.
so that this doesn't continue to happen. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
You're saying it either way? That's not true, because I came in there to ask for it, and I got the same thing, go to the state, get your license and all that stuff. When Shelby
Did
County,
you-
you don't have to go to 202 in the
Did you
state.
bring in
Shelby
your,
County did the same thing, just took that statement.
Yes.
Are you disabled?
Yes.
We do accept, so we have people who have signed up through their social security.
Well, I don't know, gotta go to state just like this gentleman.
Well, I don't know why they told you that. I do know prior to my becoming supervisor, the prior supervisor did suggest that. I do not suggest that. I don't know what other counties do, but I do know that we accept everything that is required by law.
So you accept this, the
He
federal
brought in,
government
the first
say-
I knew, he brought in his, his card. That's the first I ever
You're
knew
saying the
that.
letter from the federal government is good enough now?
I'm saying the award letter,
Yeah, the award letter.
the
that you
award
just
letter
told us.
is good enough, yes.
Okay.
She told me personally the first week of January that they didn't accept this, you gotta have the card, but by then I'd had the card.
No,
But
I
I'd done a
didn't
bunch
tell
of
you that. You
investigation
had the
from the point
card.
I was up there the first time in the fall and when I went up there in January.
Well, I
The
don't know
story
if you
just
were in
changed.
the fall. I don't know if you were in the
Okay.
fall.
Well,
But I
Dave,
hope that
He
everybody
brought
knows.
his card in.
Yeah, I know, and they could be surprised how many people I've spoke to and they did the same thing to them, you know?
Okay, I just wanted to let it be known that it was, that happened to me, but.
Well, sure, it's happened to a lot of people. I just wanted to stop because it costs the state money when they send it to the driver's place. And then it costs the Medicare system when they have to take it to their doctor. Wastes a lot of time, and disabled people just don't want to go through this hogwash when they don't have to in the first place. Anyway, hey, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave. Further public comment? Martha?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One comment on the handbook. At the city, we created a new handbook over the last couple of years. It does take some time. But a part of the insurance premiums that you pay to your insurance agency can be used for those services. I know our insuring company at the city did that for no additional charge, so you might just want to double check that out and it saves some
That's a good point.
money to the taxpayers. My
She's
second
absolutely
question is in
right.
regards to the forensic audit. I don't think, or I've never heard that that's an inexpensive proposition. Would that rise to the level of having that bid? And might you guys want to interview or talk to various firms if the state AG office doesn't do it at no cost to the taxpayers? I struggle sitting out here listening to taking one person as recommended as opposed to doing some potential interviewing or discussion and investigation into firms that might have some expertise in forensic audits for municipalities and counties.
Good point.
Can I speak to both of those issues?
Erica, go ahead.
It was discussed at the budget committee meeting last month that our insurance has provided us with a handbook. We got it, I believe, a year ago in March. We had a department head meeting to discuss issues. I have met with both the union rep for AFSCME and, what's Lisa's position?
She's asked me.
And right, that's why I said AFSCME. And I've discussed with them, she's waiting on an email for just a few changes that the AFSCME union had requested in, it's a 60-some page document. So this has been in process. Yes, it is a slow process to go through. When Lisa gets me those, I discussed it with another employee, with the AFSCME rep. We will make those changes, then bring it to the department heads to go over again and hopefully get this implemented soon. Back to the sexual harassment, this is a state mandate, it's a state law, it has to be done by October. Our insurance again is keeping us informed as to what's going on. There was discussion at the state that training would be available online, like the FOIA training and the OMA training, and hopefully it will be accessible just by every employee, and then every employee will have to take it again at that 12-month anniversary date. And as far as forensic auditor, I mentioned to Gina that I was given a name of one from up north as well, and I have a resume that I will pass on to her so that we have more than one option. It's the only other one I know of. Thank you.
Dale?
Jessica's made this available over the website here. It's from Kelly Murray. He is the Illinois Association of County Board Members contact person. There's going to be a new employment law seminar in Springfield on February the 26th. It goes from 9 to 3 that day. I am going, I've already signed up. It is free to any of the county board members or officials like that there. So it doesn't cost you anything, and they will provide a light
Can you
lunch.
name the .com where to send it, or the registry?
Yeah, I can show you that there. As far as I know, Lynn and I've got room for 8 in my van, so I got room for 6 more if you wanna let me know.
I would just also like to mention that I've been doing research into payroll policy based on issues, and so a lot of research out there, and some government auditors that have made recommendations. I am in the process of putting that payroll policy together. I don't think there's a lot of room for discussion as far as the law is pretty pointed and direct as to what we can and cannot do, what we should be doing. Hopefully by the budget meeting, I will have that draft ready for the budget committee to look at, and I would like to have it to the board by the next meeting. This is not something that's just sitting there not being dealt with. It takes time, and it would be a countywide policy, because to my knowledge, there's never been anything brought before the county board or any payroll policy established by the county. It absolutely, as Bruce said, needs to be done, and I hopefully will have that ready by the budget committee meeting on the 27th.
Dale?
I forgot to mention what that seminar is supposed to be about. This seminar will cover new rules from Springfield and Washington, including updates on the Cannabis Regulation, Tax Act, Workplace Transparency Act, and Sexual Harassment Prevention.
Jeremy? Stand up here, if that's all right.
I'm back again to talk about the Illinois separation. I've been requested by a couple of different board members to talk about financial implications for just a few minutes. First thing though, I do want to reiterate something I mentioned the first time I was here, and that is that the referendum that I'm asking you all to put on the ballot this November is just advisory. It's just giving people the opportunity to express their opinion about the issue, whether they're for or against. All it is allowing people to participate in the democratic process. So, you know, it's non-binding. It's just something to allow people to express their opinion, and we can gauge support in the county based on that expression. That's really all the referendum is. So it doesn't hold anybody's feet to the fire. It's non-binding. So we just want people to be allowed to participate in the process and express their opinion. As far as finances are concerned, a couple of board members have asked me what numbers look like. And my first response to that is usually, they don't look good now. We wouldn't be leaving good numbers. The situation is not soluble. It's not good, it's not pleasant. But also, I've done some research and talked with some people who've done some other research about how viable an option this is, because I don't get very many people who are opposed to the idea, but most who are opposed would like to see it happen, but don't think we can do it, don't think we can make a go of it. And the research actually shows an answer in the significant other direction. We absolutely can make this happen. And I've compared a lot of things like population. A new Illinois, which we're considering the 101 counties minus Cook, actually has a 7.6 million population, which is more than Missouri, is comparable to Indiana. There are several states to which it's comparable, so it's not like we're going to be a teeny tiny speck on a map. We're a legitimate state. Also, in terms of finances, when you take out the revenue that comes in from Cook County and you're left with the 101, you're left with about $26 billion worth of revenue. Missouri has $13.8 billion of revenue. We stand very well off financially at almost twice the revenue of one of our neighboring states. I also wondered what that money might need to be spent for, why that still might not be enough or might be plenty. So I looked into things like miles of roads, when you subtract Cook County from Illinois, Illinois and Missouri have very similar numbers of miles of roads. So as far as maintaining roads, you're looking at a state that's in the same part of the country that has the same concerns, and about the same miles of road, about the same people, but twice the revenue. So we stand very well. We stand very well off. We sit pretty as it is, and that's before we enact more business-friendly policy to invite business to the state instead of being repelling, and invite citizenry to the state instead of being repelling. Those are a few of the highlights. I do want to ask if there are any questions about those. Any
Well,
questions?
I do have a question. You said you've been out getting signatures. Were you out in January and February to get signatures? Just where are you at right now with the signatures to put it on the ballot?
The petition drive is going extremely well.
How many, just a guesstimate?
It's tough to give you a ballpark because I've got about 10 or 12 people helping me do this.
Okay.
I didn't even work up a tally. I can just tell you it's going really well. I'm not having any trouble. I'm not getting very many no's. And most of the no's that I get are people that don't have information. I have people that say, I've started looking into it, I'm not done, come back, I might sign. And I've got people that think that we can't make it without Cook County. And my information, which, by the way, those sources are U.S. Census Bureau, published state budgets, published Cook County budgets, and Department of Transportation for the miles of roads. So it's all just right there. I didn't come up with any of these numbers from pulling them out of my hat.
Jeremy, how many signatures do you have to put it on the ballot?
I believe the number's 731, and we're having absolutely no trouble. But that brings up a good point. If I've got the signatures, why do I need to keep doing this? And it's more of a, it's a different kind of thing. See, one of my concerns is that more now than ever, there is a divide between people and government. People don't trust government. People think government doesn't care about what they think, what they feel, what they have to say, so on and so forth. And I think it would look very good, honestly, for someone somewhere in some body of government to say, I'm interested in the people's opinion on an issue. And I would like the board to be the one to put it on the ballot and thus show that the government is interested in people's opinion. So the people can force this onto the ballot themselves, or the county board can put it on the ballot. I just think one looks a whole lot better than the other. I've been pursuing both because you never know which one's going to succeed.
Jessica, when is the last time that we can actually get it on the ballot?
There are 2 dates in August, and I'll be honest with you, at this time, I don't have those dates off the top of my head.
So we'd probably have to act by the July meeting.
I'm very patient with that. I don't mind keeping on coming back. I wasn't exactly hoping to push it to the 11th hour, but
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a recommendation to put it on the ballot and ask for a roll call.
We have to make that, we can't do that right now.
So can we put it on the agenda, Mr. Chairman, for that?
I will try to have, and I keep meaning to bring, but I will try to have wording in print, on paper, to hand out to everybody. I keep meaning to do that, and I keep forgetting, get bogged down in other things, but I appreciate that. Any, yes?
I just do have one quick question. Do you have a letter in black and white that says if it's voted to separate, how the financing part is handled, like who gets what debt, who has to pay what bills, who gets what taxes, and who determines that? Is that determined by the current legislature, or who determines that? And I would like to see that in a letter before our next board meeting. If you can give that to Jessica and she sends it out to all the members, I would like to see that in black and white.
I will work on that. I'll tell you, and I'll put it in print, but I'll tell you, part of the process is it's got to go through the state legislature, and how some of that stuff is going to be decided is in compromise. In order to become a new state, it has to go through the state legislature and the federal legislature, and in order to get the votes necessary to move that through, compromise might be necessary. The most popular plan right now is to divide the debt up by GDP per person per capita. And if that is the way that it goes straight down the line, Cook County would be responsible for about 57% of the current state debt. Downstate would be responsible for the other 43. And that depends on which counties decide to go and which decide to stay, and it depends on the compromise that's reached at the legislative level.
Just because we vote on it, don't make it's gonna happen. It's still gotta go through state legislature.
My question is hospitals, schools, roads, bridges, you've got a lot of things that the state has contracts with. You know, I mean, they give so much money to hospitals, your schools, you know. And that would be negotiated? You're saying that? Is that what you're telling me?
Not that kind of thing. It would be.
So they will be paid?
Yeah.
How are they?
It would be, Illinois would be separated into two different states. So just like it is now, except two different states. One decides what it wants to do with its facilities, the other decides what it wants to do with its facilities.
The
Just
point of
like,
government, where does that start? Do you start with the governor? Do you call it Illinois? Patriot Illinois? I mean,
what the new state's gonna be called is not.
but are you looking at what type of government, you know?
It would be a constitutional republic that fits into the federal constitution, just like all other state constitutions.
Okay, and who would draw those constitutions?
A constitutional convention would be had, the state of California is,
Okay,
next
but
month.
constitutional convention, then you open up
Everything else.
everything else. That's where I'm kind of going with that.
Everything else being,
Not for a new one.
it would have to.
Brad, do you have something to add?
So to that point, your counties will be organized, each county will send 2 delegates to a constitutional convention. Like he was to mention, New California will have their 6th constitutional convention, so they've been in the process of forming what the new governing documents will look like and how the new state will be governed. So that's a part of this process. Before you get to the Illinois General Assembly, you will put all that stuff in order so that that's a part of your resolution when the new state is to.
So anybody could run for this?
It's going to come within the Constitutional Convention, okay? It's just that's all part to be decided by what the delegates determine at the Constitutional Convention. The process that's laid out in New Illinois is laid out in the U.S. Constitution and Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. So that is the process that's laid out as you move forward. So bear in mind, you know, on November the 4th, when this passes in Shelby County is not separated from the state of Illinois, but it is a public opinion poll to find out where everybody's at on the issue, okay? And then, but it's gonna take a local grassroots effort to form a New Illinois committee, which there's a platform to do that, newillinoisstate.org. You can become a part of a county committee, and there's documents there that you have to ratify, and you begin to build that out. Some of the very first things you're gonna do once you get your committee up and running is you're gonna form some leadership. You're going to pick some delegates to go to a constitutional convention that will come together someday in the future, whatever that is. We don't really know, because committees are still being formed. This is a long ways from being soup. This is years. New California's been at it 4 years. Okay, but New California has declared independence against the old state. They have read 90+ grievances against the old state. They're up to their 6th constitutional convention, so they're pulling their stuff all together so that they're ready to go. So there's a lot of great questions. There's just answers. Yeah, I mean, you don't know what state. I mean, I just learned this week that there's townships.
I'm thinking of hospitals, you know. I mean,
so they're going to they're going to continue to function. All the entities are there that are going to continue to function.
But they could be different
going to be
amount of monies.
That's all be worked out in the future. Yeah, there's no way to say, hey, we got to wait till all the sidewalks are agreed before we go to town. You just got to start moving forward and pulling it together.
Jeremy, you got anything else?
No, just wanted to point out that new Illinois functioning as a new state and old Illinois functioning as its own state would be just like Illinois and Indiana functioning now. They're two separate states. They do their things differently, but they fall under the same umbrella, being under the same federal constitution. So it would be the same thing as two states now.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Any further public body? Kurt?
I have one question.
Bobby?
Oh, sorry.
Jeremy?
Do we have a time limit?
We'd have to pass one. We don't have one, no, but we would have to pass one like the
Maybe we
Gators
need to do
did.
that.
I thought on our,
So it's 5 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought 5-minute deal, I thought it always was 5 minutes.
Okay, well, Nick's got the floor right now, let's get his 5 minutes going.
Thank you, Chairman. My name's Kirk Allen, and
Kirk's got
I'll be brief. I won't take you.
Well, last time you went to 3.
Well,
Okay, let's let him talk.
I appreciate that, but I think the information is extremely important, especially with looking at the number of people that are here. I want to point back to some things I said last time to some of the new board members, and there's a term of art in the legal industry called statutory construction. Statutory construction basically means you read the statute and it's to be applied with the plain language. And in that process, if it's not plain, what do you do? If you don't understand it, what's the plan? Well, the courts default to other cases that have been ruled on those statutes. They also look at legislative intent on those statutes. The issue, and I want to bring some clarification, because with social media, there's so many different opinions and ideas of what I said last time. I want to make sure we're clear. County boards have a county board statute, and nowhere in the county board statute does it give you the power to appoint an attorney or a special attorney. Only the state's attorney statute has that. That's it. Now, there's case laws with conflicts and things like that where you may be able to go and hire those, and there's guidelines that explain all that. It's real clear. When in 14 you guys did what you did, or whoever was here that did it, you never had that power to do it. You may have wanted a special state's attorney, but there was no power to do it then. Let's assume there was. He was appointed for a specific purpose. He went well beyond that purpose. He's been doing all kinds of work that weren't designated in that resolution. The problem with the current law, and it is being addressed with the legislators, an assistant state's attorney is appointed by your state's attorney. Their salary is fixed within the budget constraints you decide. In this section B, state's attorney may appoint qualified attorneys to assist as special assistant state's attorneys when the public interest so requires. They never outlined a provision how those people get paid. Paragraph A tells you how they get paid. Paragraph B with this new title doesn't explain that. Some will say it defaults to paragraph A for payment. Okay, well that payment is set by the state's attorney's office then, not the county board. And those are the types of things that I'm trying to bring to clarification, because a lot of money has gotten spent on things that shouldn't have been the way it was done. If it's an issue of recusing, I know in our county, we have an assistant state's attorney that was appointed by our state's attorney, and they handle labor negotiations. It was all done with the assistant state's attorney's budget, not the general town budget or the general county budget. And that's part of the process. If it's a conflict on legal matters, then it ties into the state's attorney can recuse themselves and the courts appoint. And that's a much deeper process. I don't think that's what has to or needs to even happen here. But it is a simple process. The key to getting answers to your question is how you phrase the question. And I don't want to be a killjoy, and I commend you for contacting the AG. We had a conflict of interest with the sheriff sitting on the 911 board because our financial system, there was a conflict. He's getting paid by the county through county funds, and it was a straight up conflict. The state's attorney asked the question, can this happen? It took 4 years for them to issue their letter, and they said, yep, it's a conflict, you can't do it. It took 4 years, so don't hold your breath on an answer back from the AG very quick. It takes years. Enough on that. No purchase of property at own sale. no sheriff or deputy shall become the purchaser nor procure any other person to become the purchaser for him or her of any property, real or personal, by him or exposed to sale. All such purchases made by the sheriff or deputy sheriff or by any other person in his or her behalf shall be absolutely null and void. We were tipped off in 2018 regarding illegal gun sales. I sent a FOIA May 18, 2018. In that FOIA, the response I got, there were no seized weapons sold by the sheriff's office. Yes, there were. And it's a word game. They were seized when they were arrested. Now they may have, once they're seized, they become orders of the court. That property of the county through the court, and they obtain jurisdiction through the law. There was a plea agreement. The plea agreement, he forfeits them in that plea agreement, but that doesn't mean those weapons weren't seized. That was May 18th that I sent that. We followed up February of 2019, and I was told no guns were sold. It was determined that the gun sale on February 23rd may not have complied with Illinois state law. Well, we know it didn't. The sale of the guns on February 23rd of 18 was rescinded May 30th of 2018, approximately a week after our FOIA. They knew it wasn't legal. We know that from several sources. So when you get told something, you really have to analyze the details of every single word and how it's being applied. In relation to the time card issue, and these are letters from your sheriff's office, we assumed that hours worked was still hours per week. We assumed. Payroll, we got to stop assuming, and that's kind of the point with everything you're looking at, and I commend you with the forensic audit side of it. To answer your question, the big difference with the forensic audit, sir, forensic audit's going to look at, is the expenditure legal, and the documentation to support that expense. General audits, what comes in goes out, it balances, they never question the legality of how it's spent or whether it was backed up with supporting documents. I was told when calculating overtime pay, we assumed an 80-hour pay period and divided their compensation by 80 when we should have been dividing by 70. Per the contract, and this is an important thing, I was told per the contract, overtime is accrued when a deputy works over his scheduled shift of 10 hours. Well, most people would take the letter and say, okay, that's it. Well, that's not true, because that's not what your contract says. How many have read your FOP contract for your deputies? Overtime, all hours worked in excess of 8 in a work day of 40 hours in a work week shall receive time and a half. What's in the contract is not what's in the letter the sheriff sent me. So that's a problem. To me, that's a red flag. It's not based on whether they work over the standard work week. Well, actually it is according to the contract. And the other interesting part of this, the work schedule, this problem started the minute you went to a 4-10 schedule, which is 40 hours. That's when the problem started. The contract says all employees shall be scheduled to work on a regular 5-day work shift. Shall. It doesn't say you can go to 4-10s. It says you shall work a 5-day and 7-day week. That's straight up contract. On the gun issue, the primary concern that we had with this, when we looked at all of the numbers, guns were sold, deputies bought them, we get a FOIA, they go and get some of the guns back. I don't know how you got the guns back from gun brokers, but that's another topic for another day. The receipts, the bank deposits, and the checks paid back don't match. The receipt book total was $7,700, the bank deposit records was $7,800, but checks paid back was $83.75. How did we pay back more than what we had come in? That's an accounting issue that would need a forensic audit to analyze. So when you go to a forensic audit, I would encourage you don't just do payroll, because you've got other issues here, and one of them is with this particular account, because the money was in for shot for the cop. That's an account that the treasurer, according to the audit report, doesn't have access to. And in that light, in his letter, they tell me, apologize, I've got several letters from the sheriff here. The funds are 100% donated to the sheriff's office by private individuals and businesses. Well, that's not true because gun sales are not private businesses and individuals. Those are gun sales that should have never happened by law. There are no tax dollars spent on this charitable program. Well, we don't know that because nobody has access to that account, and the auditor specifically said that should have been placed in the treasurer's hands. There's approximately $90,000 in that account.
Wait a minute, I got a
Yes, sir.
question. Is, I'm president of Lions Club, okay? And we always donate to Shop with a Cop.
You bet.
You know, and it's a great program.
Totally
These
agree.
guys, I'm sticking up for these guys. I mean, they really go,
I have no qualms with the program.
you know, but there are people that do donate to that. You're
You
saying
bet.
you don't, so you're saying that my organization should write a check to Erica and then they go do that?
Oh, I didn't say that at all. In fact, your sheriff, after we inquired on this, he states, "We're reaching out to local charitable organizations that would be willing to accept the donations on our behalf and act as a fiduciary for the program." Because as a township supervisor, we had people come in and say, "Hey, we need Shop with a Cop, would you give us some money?" I had to sign those checks. And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. You show me in the law where it says I can do this with taxpayer money, and I'll do it, if the board approves it." They couldn't find anything. When it comes to donations, those are handled entirely different in that regard, but any money that comes in, the courts have always said that's now taxpayer money. It has to be spent for a public purpose because it ties back to the Constitution, Article 5, Section 1. What qualifies as a public purpose? Now, 90% of people say Shop with a Cop's got a great public purpose because it helps the kids. Well, public purpose is defined by the courts, and it won't match that situation, and that's why it's important to have an independent fiduciary that handles those funds. So as far as where you send them, I would never suggest where you should send them. That's what our organization is about. The key is the accountability of how that money gets spent. We have Shop with a Cop money from gun sales. The guns were purchased at a cut rate price versus what they were appraised at. And then the county paid out revenues that exceeded the money deposits, and that's a problem.
Mr. Don,
Yes,
could you
ma'am.
repeat those numbers that you had, the receipts, the deposits, and then the checks paid back, I think is how you said it?
Yes, ma'am. The receipt book, which was part of the FOIA for what was paid for the guns, was $7,700. The bank deposit records was $7,800. Now, interesting with the bank deposit slips, my first FOIA in 2018 generated one bank deposit. That was it. My second FOIA produced what should have been produced in the first FOIA. It never was. So that was another red flag for us. The checks paid for guns allegedly returned, and I say allegedly returned because some of them were sold on gun broker. They weren't returned. $8,375. So then the math doesn't add up, and I don't know where the discrepancy is. I have no idea. And it could be a simple clerical error that it was 7,700 instead of 78, you know, as far as in and out. But the checks paying out doesn't match. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make abundantly clear, these checks were not written out of my office. And
That's
again,
correct.
that it has absolutely nothing to do with the treasurer's office. I want to make that abundantly clear.
That is correct. These are all from an account the sheriff is managing, but the auditor, in his letter, the sheriff specifically was told this needs to be handled by the treasurer's office. And it's not. And this isn't a problem isolated here. We have FOIA'd all 102 counties. We have been on illegal gun sale projects, and I'm a gun nut, you know, for what it's worth. I am a big gun advocate. I hunt, I shoot, I reload, I do it all. But we're seeing sheriff's offices selling guns illegally, and a lot of times they're selling them to their own people. And the law, that's a second prong violation. The county code, you can't buy something from your own agency like that. And that's what's happened here. Decatur, it's happened. In fact, I don't know what the status is on that deputy. He was buying property at the tax sale. The sheriff's handled tax sale, and he was buying property. He had the inside track, and they were looking at indicting him. I don't know if that's ever happened. And I'm not saying that's what needs to happen here. I'm saying there's inconsistencies, and the math doesn't add up. I don't have anything else unless you have any questions.
Are you saying that if they take the donation, that it goes into her office, then they can still have the Shop with a Cop?
I didn't say that at all. No, sir.
You're making it sound that way if it goes into her fund.
To answer your question, I didn't,
go there, can it?
to answer your question, I didn't say that. That would be a financial question, it would be great for your auditor. Your auditor has recommended shop of the top money be handled in that office. You're talking about taking private donations, which is a whole separate issue that has to be handled differently.
That's why they were keeping it separate. Where it didn't become taxpayers' money.
Right.
It is taxpayer money, whether it comes into
If
my
it comes
office or
into
not,
your place,
because
it's taxpayers' money.
it is automatically taxpayer money as soon as it goes to a department head. There's a statute that says as an elected official, any elected official, any monies you take in are automatically property of the county. And we do donations for, or there are donations made for the rescue squad and the dive team that we buy equipment for. When they do theirs, they immediately come into my office and they are taxpayer funds. I don't know the statute off the top of my head, but it is very clear that, I mean, if Debbie was to take donations for some new equipment, it's automatically, county money. No, but, I mean, it's very clear in the statute that it becomes taxpayer dollars.
I'll close with one statement. I want to address your supervisor's assessment. In regards to the disability tax exemption, we get tips from all over about all kinds of things. So we walked into the supervisor's assessment's office. Now we talked with you, okay? And if we had the, I think it's the D1 from Social Security, would we get the exemption? And the answer was yes. That's what we were told. I don't know what anybody else has been told or what those other people told, but I have to tell you what she told me. It would qualify, and I wouldn't need to do anything else. But that doesn't mean somebody else didn't. Like she said, she doesn't know what somebody else may or may not have said. That's all hearsay. But I want to share that because we did try to identify whether this was really a problem, because we heard some of the same things from other entities. In your defense, you didn't do anything outside what we were told. We didn't talk to your other employees about that issue.
I did.
That's all I had. Thank you. Unless anybody has any questions. I'm sorry if I took up too much time. Thank you very much.
Any, Dale?
Kenny said something about here about time limits and things. Order of business that we adopt each time, the 6th, it says, no member shall speak more than twice on the same question without leave from the board, and shall not occupy more than 15 minutes the first time and no more than 5 minutes the second time. So we do have something already.
That's for board
But that's
members,
board
that's not
members.
for the public.
That's board members.
That's for board members.
That's not
I'm just letting you know. we do that.
That's board members,
That's
that's
different. I
not
thought it
public
was
comment.
five for the first time, and then whoever else talks, the second guy come back.
We might have to fix that, we'll take it,
Thank you, five, and then come back, and then come back.
Are there any other comments? If none, do I have a motion for adjournment?
I would like to make a motion to assess mileage and per diem for the February meeting.
Payment of claim.
Well, are
Isn't
you
that
gonna
part of the
approve,
adjournment?
are you gonna approve the payment of claims as part of your?
That's what I'm doing right
That's what I
now.
thought.
I think that has to be two separate motions.
We've always done it in one.
I know we have, I know we've always done it
Brad, is this your
before.
new, is this our new policy? Is this gotta be in a new
Well,
format?
I actually have went and I've looked at other counties, how they do it, and actually other counties actually do a motion for approval of the claims, and then they adjourn.
Okay, but that doesn't mean we have to do it that way.
I just wanna make sure that you're doing things correctly, that's all I wanna
Well,
make
the
sure.
intent, the language would be that we, what Terry talks about and what we, I know past practice is a bad word, but basically it takes care of everything.
Why don't we just go through this, and then the next month I'll get with you, and we'll make it 2 months.
That's all I'm saying, I just wanna make sure that
It's
you're
actually
doing
nice.
things
Actually,
as you
two items.
should.
Let's do it the way
Well,
Jessica
it is
would
two
like
items.
it to be done. Do I have a motion to approve the bills? Dale, whether all motions, do I have a second?
Yes, it
Gary
is.
Gardini. Is there any discussion on payment of the bills and claims for the last one? If none, do I have, those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Those opposed say nay? Okay. Terry, could we have a motion for adjournment?
Okay, let's just adjourn until the March 11th meeting.
All in favor say aye.
Yeah.